Where should we start today, Rob? What's going on? How's your Johnny Decimal going?
Yeah, how's your Johnny Decimal?
I have read. I'll have you know that I have read the workbook cover to cover. Twice. I've read the entire website, and I think there are a lot of really good ideas in there.
Yeah,
I think that there are aspects that I am going to incorporate into getting organized, and aspects that I won't. I think in part because if anybody who's listening listens to App Stories, I talked to Federico about this a little bit this past week on App Stories. I feel like with all of these systems that some blend is really in order for a lot of people because everybody's work is very different. And I'm starting to realize, like, one of the things that I came to realization about is that most of my work is very disposable in the sense that everything I do ends up published somewhere. And once it's on the web, once it's in an RSS feed, once it's, an audio record, whatever it is, all the stuff that went into that is garbage. And I mean, it's not completely true, not always true. I do have reference files. I do have all kinds of other stuff, like businessy stuff for running Mac stories and stuff. But like the content creation side, I create enormous numbers of files, most of which are pretty useless at the end of the day, because a lot of this stuff we write about has a pretty short shelf life on top of the fact that it's published somewhere. And as a result, I feel like I need I need to have a system that kind of helps me distinguish between working files and reference files, for instance. And I think that can be built into a Johnny Decimal system on the Finder side of things. But I also am, pretty deep into Obsidian too. And I think that, not that Obsidian doesn't fit with the Johnny Decimal system. I think it does, and I think it can very well. But I think in my looking at it, I'm like, I need a combination of a shallow folder structure that is replicated similarly across bunch of different domains, like the Finder, the file system, my notes, my task management system, so that the nomenclature is the same from one app to the others, make switching easy. And then I just need to rely on things like search and linking and that sort of thing. Linking's a big part of what I do too, and I think there's a place for search as well. But yeah, so I've been playing around with all this stuff, and I can't say that I've arrived at an endpoint yet. I'm just kind of doing it very tentatively and a little bit as I go along and thinking about it more, which I think is one of the things that's suggested in the Johnny Decimal system, which I think is good advice for any system that you're testing out for the first time. So yeah, I'm just kind of rolling with it and taking parts of it and incorporating into what I was already doing in some of my work. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think to what you say, I think you're right, and then the book is very clear on this as well, or at least he emphasizes it a lot. Like, don't just jump into this and start moving files around, because you're not gonna. You need, because as you say, it's quite a narrow system deliberately. Like it's designed to be, no, you can't have 50 categories of things, because that doesn't make any sense for any normal person.
Right.
You say you've got your writing and the business stuff and maybe some family and home stuff, but me and you are not going to have 20 or 30 categories of different things. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So what I did is, like you, I read the book twice. I even printed out the worksheets because I thought, I'll do a bit of writing. Actually filled in the sheets, which was fun. Nice. And I think with all these systems, whether it's this or, off the top of my head, like bullet journaling, for example, or Obsidian linking, like all of these sort of different systems for doing different things.
Rob, come on, I gotta stop you. It's called Bujo. You got to get the terminology right.
Oh, I am absolutely not calling it that. No, this
your PK,
that was a bad example.
Your PKM for your Bujo. Come on.
Oh no. What was this? Yeah. Right, you've completely thrown me off.
Sorry.
Now. No, it's fine. what I was going to say was, like, with all these systems, I think systems or whatever they are, you can go into them and they just work for some people. And sometimes you know, I've tried Obsidian a few times before it really clicked with me. With the Johnny Decimal system, like, once I had thought about, and really thought about for like a week, you know, I was just sort of scribbling down notes and thinking about how I'm going to organize this. This is working amazingly for me. All of my files are sorted. And to what you said, I have done this in Obsidian as well, if only to split up my categories of notes.
Mm-hmm.
And almost one of the things that, I mean, it is very important, you know, it is the numbers on the folders and the items and stuff.
Right.
But I'd never really considered how useful that is, that folders don't move around when you add a new one.
Right.
Because in the past week since I did this to Obsidian, I'm like, this is amazing, because my general notes are always at the top where I've put them. Then I've got, you know, ideas and you know, all of my other categories there. I don't think I'd ever considered the benefit of, because otherwise you're sort of going back and forth, go, oh, maybe I'll do alphabetical sort, or I'll do it by created at or updated at. Doing it with these numbers, it's like, no, that's the order. These things are never going to move around. And if you add another category or another area, it just goes at the bottom.
Yep.
And it has helped me no end in terms of like keeping track of what notes I'm editing and all of the ideas that I'm putting in.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point about all this. And I think it does help in Obsidian a lot too, not just in the file system, because Obsidian hasn't historically been very good at managing folders of notes. I mean, it's funny, it is just a folder of notes, but it's more of a linking wiki style app first, and the Explorer's sidebar, wouldn't say it's an afterthought, and it has improved a lot. But for instance, for the longest time, you couldn't select multiple items and delete them all at once. That wasn't a feature that arrived until sometime in the last year or so, I think, on the Mac. So it's like, yeah, the folder structure on Obsidian is still, to me, feels a little rudimentary compared to something like maybe a native Mac app or even the Finder or whatever it happens to be. But, you know, the linking kind of makes up for that. But having a numbering system like you described really makes up for a lot of those shortcomings, because it does help keep the folders organized and then make it easy to find things again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even if, you know, in your case, you know, you're going to maybe use, you know, just some of the ideas from Johnny Decimal or whatever, I think there's so much value in what's on the website and as well as in the workbook, you know, the ebook, that there's so many good ideas there that even if it's like one thing that you take or a couple of different things, like, you can still take those and apply it to, you know, whatever the scenario is. You don't have to go all in if it doesn't work for you. And yeah, I've just been really impressed with it, to be honest, because I have been able to find all my files. And part of the problem, and this has come up in the 8 years we've been doing this, but I like to hoard. I like to archive a lot of things. You know, I have 30, 40 gigabyte of archived podcasts. All these podcasts are still on the internet.
Right.
But I'm not risking them not being on the internet anymore.
Right.
You know, I have that. I have, you know, fan art that people have made from podcasts that I listen to that I've downloaded and stuff like that. So for me, because I'm collecting all these files, just these random files, like, having the system like this actually helps me a hell of a lot to be able to put them in the right place.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I've got the same thing. Plus I've got just like many years of moving from one system to another and a bunch of old stuff that just got thrown into a folder, and then I never really looked at it again. So I think really what I'm going to do is probably start fresh with kind of my current stuff first, and not worry about older files for the time being, and maybe just shuffle those off to the side for now. And otherwise, it's just too daunting a task for me. But yeah, it's been you know, good food for thought for sure. Go ahead.
Sorry, I got. I mean, speaking of podcasts and fan art, and me doing the Johnny Decimal system allowed me to find these files again. But I recreated on the web one of your first apps.
Yes, you did. Yes, the Volcaner app from Bonanza, right? I guess it was before it was Bonanza.
Yeah, it was.
Was it Bonanza? All right, I couldn't remember if it was already Bonanza yet or not.
No, it was. No, it was Bionic first.
Yeah.
It was Sorry, it was Bionic. I get confused which way around it was.
I do too. So this was a podcast that Mike Hurley and Matt Alexander did for quite a few years, and officially, I don't think it's been ended. It still pops up.
No,
It comes up every once or twice a year. Not even twice a year now. Once every couple of years. But it was a lot of fun, and that's kind of how you and I got to know each other, as well as a bunch of other people got to know each other, and a lot of that fan art that you talk about came out of that, and I got help on that app with some of the design stuff from our friend Forgotten Towel. So, this was a soundboard app of suspense sounds, which is suspense sounds from.
Are they from like Final Cut or like?
They're either from Final Cut or GarageBand. I think that they're from one of those, and then some other clips. Which ultimately, I had a random generator, and I have somewhere, and this goes to digital hoarding. I have something like 130 little 2 to 3 second clips of Matt and Mike on my hard drive, and every now and then I'll just like text one to Mike Hurley just to let him remember that I have him saying these bizarre things in audio that I can share if I need to blackmail him at some point in the future.
Yeah, this is one of those fun things where I'd been meaning to do it for a while. I think I even texted you months ago about it. And it's one of those frustrating things where you made a soundboard app, which ultimately would have been relatively simple. It played, as you say, it basically played random sound clips, 1 to 9 or whatever it had.
Yep.
And at some point it just stopped working. I don't know what version it was or whatever, but like these things just don't exist forever without developer input.
Right.
Annoyingly, even though in reality there's no reason that app couldn't run. I'm sure that you could just recompile it and it would work. Mm-hmm. And I wanted it back, which is why I went and built it. And I very meticulously found, I could only find like 2 screenshots of it on the entire internet. So I managed to match all the colours and the icons. I had to recreate like the little triangle that you had and the circle and all of this kind of stuff. Plus the 2 color themes, because I think originally it was just the black and red theme.
Right.
And then it went to the colors one.
Right.
So I made both of those as well.
Nice. Yeah, it was that was me learning how to be an app developer. I am actually a little surprised that it doesn't work anymore. It probably has something to do with screen sizes, because that was probably an iOS 9 era thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
I think the only screenshot that I found on the internet was it superimposed on an iPhone 5C, so that gives you some idea of how long ago that was.
Yeah, it was a really long time ago, and it's I think I've removed it from sale. It's amazing to me. One of the things about selling apps on the App Store is even when you remove them from sale, unless you actually remove them from the App Store, they stick around and get used forever. I mean, I literally have apps that haven't been for sale for 5 years, and I still get reports about how many people launch them every week. And there are people doing it. And if you build an app with default UI features, they will still continue to work. I mean, I'm sure that, my app is full of things like an old-fashioned stock keyboard and things like that. It'll probably be things like the chunky keyboard that eventually kills it, where Apple finally says, no, you can't use this keyboard from 10 years ago anymore. but because it looks really funny on like a big phone. But yeah, people are still using some of that stuff, which is kind of wild.
I've had a busy couple of weeks. I won't say I started it, because a lot of people have been crediting me with this, but I was involved in a blogging trend, which I'm not sure, has that even been a thing for?
Well, you know what? I think we're at a moment where it hasn't been a thing for a very long time, and that it's going to be a thing more and more. And so I think you're kind of riding a growing wave, and I think it's all down to things like ActivityPub and owning your own content, micro.blog style, and there's just been a resurgence of all that stuff, because so many people have been burned by Twitter and other companies along the way, that people are starting to recognize the benefit of kind of having their own sites and having their own stuff to share.
Yeah, it's been crazy, really. I mean, it was Hemispheric Views episode 97 where they did this sort of quiz competition thing. It was called a Duel of the Defaults, who uses the most default apps in various categories, calendars and, mail client, things like that. And like after the episode came out, we were just chatting about it, and Gabs, who's a listener to their show, and I think this one as well, he put up his list as a blog post, and I thought, that's a good idea, I'm going to do mine. And then we got maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6, and I thought, it'd be good, we'll collect them on a website, so I just set up a little website just to, look, here's the 5 or 6 blog posts we've got. And as of today, we have 143 blog posts.
Oh, wow. I was on this site not that long ago, but I didn't realize it was that many. I mean, it's really been a lot of people have been adding them recently, I think, right?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of analysis today just because I was curious. And one of the days we had like 35 blog posts added.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Because it sort of simmered down because it was sort of clearly, just Hemispheric Views listeners.
Right.
You've listened to the podcast, you do this thing. And then Matt Birchler put a post up, and then that spread to a bunch of the people that follow him, and then there was a bunch of other people that did it, and so we're up to like 143, and today's actually been the slowest day. I think I've only had to add 2 or 3. But yeah, it's been a weird couple of weeks, and like you say, I think you're right. I think all of this is down to like people are blogging more, people are writing on their websites more because we, like as you say, we've all been burned by Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all of this stuff where everybody's just losing whatever they've written, or Reddit is another good example. And it's nice, it's fun. Like this is what it feels like what blogging was, sort of 15 years ago. Everyone was blogging and people were using RSS and stuff like that. So this has been fun. I'll put a link in the show notes, and there's a lot of good posts there, but there's also I set it up so you can subscribe if you want to all of the people's RSS feeds all at once. So there's a little export there, and you can just plonk that straight into your RSS reader.
Oh, that's nice.
I've added probably 100 or so feeds to my RSS reader, which is great because people are just posting fun little things, and it's kind of replacing what I was doing with Reddit before I stopped using that, where it's just little posts or links to interesting things. But yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I saw that you shared a blog from somebody who's doing TV, movie, and book reviews today on Mastodon. That was a really nice site. I really like that. Was a good WordPress theme. I really liked the style of that site.
Yeah, I will. I would like to at least name check the person. Was it
Alex?
It's Alexandra.
Alexandra. I don't know who the last name was, but.
Yeah, and that's inreview.ca.
Right.
But we will. Yeah, it was a beautiful website.
Yeah, I was poking around on
really
that.
Is nice.
Yeah, I was just poking around on the site. It looks like it's a very new site, but it's a very nice site, and there's some interesting books on there in particular that I took note of.
Yeah, so we'll put that in the show notes as well, and subscribe wherever you get your RSS feeds.
Go check out Rob's list, because it is a really interesting list, and it's a lot of people doing interesting things on the web again, which I think the timing is right for that kind of thing, and it's nice that you're collecting it all in one place, because I think a lot of people there's like obviously a desire for this kind of content out there in a way that maybe there wasn't 5 years ago, when people were more consumed by social media than they are today, at least in our corner of the internet. And yeah, it's I've seen a lot of people take note of it already, and it's a neat trend and a fun idea.
Yeah, and I think just to a last sort of point on this, I think what would have happened 5 years ago is this would have been condensed down to 140 characters, or 280, I guess, depending on what the timing was, and we all just sort of would have posted them on Twitter, and that would have been the end of it, and then you'd never be able to find them again.
Right. Well, so you know what I would do? I would make a suggestion to people who are involved in this, is that there is a social media angle you can have with this, and I do think works well with something like ActivityPub and Mastodon. Is I think it always helps. Like, and this is the kind of stuff that like we think about constantly at Mac Stories, because we don't like to give ownership of our content to somebody else, which is always a problem with Twitter. And so you still do the blog post and you get it on, and then Rob puts it on his site, and then you also do the post. But the post is just it's like the introduction to what you've got, so people can help. It's the directory to help people find it. It doesn't have to be everything reduced into the length of a Mastodon post. It can be, I just did my defaults post, and here's a screenshot of my home screen or something like that, and then a link to your website. I think social media is still valuable in that kind of way, and you can think of it as marketing or promotion or whatever, which I know some people don't like that, but still, if you're writing it, you want people to read it, presumably.
Of course.
So you have to get the word out somehow, and putting together a short little post on Mastodon or wherever you choose to visit social networks is a good way to do that, I think. And I would encourage people to use it that way instead of as a replacement for the blogs, as a way of telling people about your blog.
Exactly. We've got good social media advice.
Yes, that is my social media advice. I think about literally every time I post on Mastodon, I think to myself, is this an idea that should be an article, or is this an idea that should be on social media? I really do, because if it should be an article, I'm not putting it on Mastodon, because why should I? It should be somewhere where it's a little more permanent and can be more easily found. And maybe I summarize it in a post later when I have the article to point to. But I'm not super interested. And there's a lot of conversation you can have on social media that's separate and apart from this kind of thing that isn't ever a blog post. People just chatting, obviously. But I think that a lot of you have like an interesting idea. I think the best place for that kind of stuff really isn't social media.
It's really not. And I can speak to this. Like my top 2 most popular posts on my website are: convert your Facebook login to email on Spotify. And that post is 150 words long, maybe, at most.
Right.
And the second one is how to do a blank table header in Markdown. And that post is even shorter. And both of those are consistently my most popular posts. And those I'm sure I could have condensed those down to 140 characters.
Yep.
And I didn't. I thought, no, I'm going to put a blog post up. And, I'm glad I did, because all those people that presumably are trying to convert their Facebook login on Spotify have found my article. They can just see it. It's very clear. They haven't got to dig through Spotify's help forums where they flat out lie and tell you can't do it. So yeah, even if it is short, even if it's 100 words, it doesn't have to be some 10,000 word masterpiece review of iOS like Viticci does every year. Like just write stuff. Just write stuff and then put it out there and let people see it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that's good. Maybe we will start a blogging revolution, like version 3.0.
There we go.
All right.
Not Web 3.0, totally different thing.
No. We should talk about games a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a
should.
PlayStation Portal coming, and it's been kind of roundly panned in the reviews, which makes me a little nervous. And I read these reviews, and I'm not as nervous after reading them, because a lot of people, I guess the sentiment is, what's the point? Because it's a screen attached to a controller, it has Wi-Fi, and it has a headphone jack, and that's about it. It doesn't have any storage, so you don't download games to it, you don't stream games to it, none of that kind of stuff. All you do is it's a remote play device for Sony, which you can obviously already do with an iPhone or an Android phone or an iPad or a Mac or a PC. There, you can basically do Sony remote play on basically almost any screen you've got. But this is a dedicated 8-inch screen, which sounds like it's a pretty good quality screen. Not the best. It's definitely not like OLED or whatever. But I think that there is still potentially a market for this. It's just that I think people get hung up on, is this a portable gaming system? It's definitely not that. This is like an accessory for the PlayStation 5. It's for people who maybe have one TV in their house and maybe they share their living space with someone who doesn't want video games being played 24/7 on the screen. And so they can connect to their PlayStation 5 using the portal and play a game remotely that way, that's kind of how I view it. It's like if I want to play a little Spider-Man and Jennifer's watching a show, I can put on some headphones and fire up the PS5, which, there was an update to the PS5 where now you can actually mute it from beeping. You know how it beeps when...
Can I?
Yeah, you can. It's from only like 2 or 3 weeks ago, which I was like, thank goodness, finally, because I would be doing things like I'd be upstairs in bed or something, and I'd fire up a remote session on the PS5, and I'd get a text from Jennifer, something just beeped. I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. But it beeps really loudly when it turns on. So I'm kind of glad that you can turn off the beep. It's deep in the settings somewhere, Rob, but you'll find it.
I'm definitely going to look for that as soon as we finish.
Yeah, so it's in there. I think you might be able to do it from the PlayStation app on iOS too. But in any event, the PlayStation Portal is, by all accounts, a DualSense controller, has all the normal features you'd expect from the DualSense, except for the fact that the touchpad in the center doesn't really exist because it's been split in half. So the screen is touch sensitive, which I guess is a little awkward at times just because it's an 8-inch screen. And that's about it. I mean, you're going to have good Wi-Fi for this to work, pretty fast Wi-Fi. It's not going to have split second zero lag reaction times, but it's got potential. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe it was a bad purchase. We will see if I find a way to rationalize it, but I don't think mine is shipped yet. I know a couple of people who have had theirs shipped, but mine has not, I don't think. It's supposed to be out by tomorrow. Some people are getting by tomorrow.
Sure. I mean, speaking of not buyer's remorse, but no, that was a terrible segue. Your old Steam Deck just in the bin now.
Yeah,
there's an OLED model coming.
There is, and I'm kind of torn. I really OLED is pretty good, and it's got more battery life, and it's got Wi-Fi 6E, I think, or 6. But I don't know. I mean, it's got a slightly faster processor, I think, too. It's like on a smaller nanometer process for the chip or whatever, but it's not significantly different. I mean, they upgraded the screen, they made the Wi-Fi faster, and that's about it. And the battery's better. The battery thing is a big deal if you play modern AAA games on the Steam Deck. It has pretty bad battery life. So anything more you can get there is pretty good. But yeah, I'm glad that they did it. I mean, I think there was a report not that long ago, towards the end of the summer, that someone at Valve had said that they weren't doing a Steam Deck 2 anytime soon, which I think makes sense. I think the demand is still there for the existing one, and the hardware is still good enough to support everything except, I guess Starfield plays really poorly on it, from what I understand. But in any event, there's still an enormous catalog that runs really well on the Steam Deck, and but I do think it's nice to refresh it. It's very much in the vein of what Nintendo did with the OLED Switch.
Yeah, definitely. And new Steam Deck model is good for me, because it means the old ones secondhand will get cheaper, and eventually I can buy one off somebody.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's really funny. Every time I think of the Steam Deck right now, I think of something that Federico is doing, which is he got this idea from a reader who emailed him and said that you can Velcro a Thunderbolt 4 hub to the back of the Steam Deck, use these very special USB 4 right angle adapters, and then you can, and this other cable, and then you can both use the Steam Deck, charge it, and use your X-Real AR glasses all at the same time.
Oh my word!
So he's doing that right now. He's
Of course he
and,
is.
and it's a very specific hub that you can't get in Italy. So I actually sent it to him. I mailed it to him. So
Yeah, did I? Was this on Connected? On
yeah,
App Stories?
it was on Connected. They talked about it a little bit.
That was it. Yeah.
It's a good hub. It's by Pluggable, and what's good about it is it's very small. Like the hub itself is very thin, so if you don't have a lot of space, it's very nice. That's why it works well in the back of a Steam Deck. Of course, it comes with your usual Thunderbolt hub giant brick, for powering it. But that's to be expected, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to the Portal. Mine still hasn't shipped. I'm a little annoyed. They're shipping it. They're shipping to other people I know. They should know that I ordered this before them.
Have you not explained to them who you are?
I ordered it by the side of the road. I don't know how I got the alert. I found out. Oh, I think my one of my kids told me, who was on saw it on Twitter or something, and before it was X even, I think. And I pulled over to the side of the road and ordered it because I figured they'd sell out. So
yeah, you need to explain to them that you're John Voorhees of Mac Stories.
Oh yeah,
and they need to get it to you straight away.
I know. I've been doing too much of this impulse buying experiments lately. I gotta cool it. It's gonna break me financially if I'm not careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Should we wrap it up? I see there's a note about AI, but maybe I'll gather my thoughts about that, and we can do that next time.
Yeah, we can do that as a tease for the next time. I have been using a couple of different AI apps, and I found a couple of apps where they're really useful. It's a really useful technology, but I also have very mixed feelings about some of the other parts of the AI world. But I found something that's helpful and not stealing from anybody, which is good.
Well, there you go. There you go. A little tease for everybody, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
All right. Talk to you later, Rob.